My guests this evening are Dr. Earl Burky and Mr. Ed Ebey. Dr. Burky is the current president of the Yuba-Sutter-Colusa County Medical Society, seated right next to me, and Mr. Ebey is the executive secretary of the Yuba-Sutter-Colusa County Medical Society. Dr. Burky, Mr. Ebey, welcome to the Medical Explorer this evening. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Burky, I'd like to begin by asking you to tell our audience a little bit about the purpose of the County Medical Society and what it can do for the community.
The society has been here for a long time and has a very interesting history, and we've got records on it dating back into the 1800s. It's an organization of physicians who come together once a month, discuss medical problems in the community, get into scientific lectures once a month, and then as a sort of side function of it, try to provide some service functions in the community. I think probably one of the most useful functions that we perform is an answering service for newcomers to the community, or for that matter old residents of the community that may need to find their way into the medical care delivery system. And what this amounts to is that Mr. Ebey is available to answer phone calls from people who are wondering how they can find a physician to care for themselves and solve their medical problems. And he is able to give them listings of physicians in not only family practice and general practice, but also specialty practice that we have available here in the community, and in this way can guide them into the medical care delivery system. We also have some functions that people don't really see or aren't aware of, but are very useful to them in terms of the community services, and one of these is the emergency care delivery system. We have a committee that's been under the guidance of Dr. DeMattei for many years on civil defense and emergency health care, and he is available and has been available to any of the lay groups that are working in the area of civil defense in the community in terms of what can be provided by way of physician help and physician support. And that, as I say, operates somewhat behind the scenes. Nobody's really much aware of it, but it is useful in terms of the community's well-being. One of the things I've been especially interested in is the school care committee, and I've been the chairman of that for a number of years. And one of my jobs in that regard is to attend the adaptive physical education programs at the high school level. And in these, the coaches and the nursing staff at the high school have set up a program whereby children that are disabled in one way or another from asthma or some traumatic injury or some medical disability or allergy can utilize their physical education time to benefit their health needs. And these programs are set up by the physician, and I'm simply the coordinator, and we sit down every couple of months and go over this list of kids and try to arrange a suitable program that they can utilize their physical education time and gain credit, and yet at the same time improve their physical status.
Correct. Who pays for the services of the Medical Society? When someone calls up, they're not asked to pay the society for any
No, there is no charge. The dues that the physician members pay provide these services, so there is no charge to the people that would utilize it.
I wanted to ask Mr. Ebey to tell us exactly how people can get in touch with you to ask questions about physicians. Where would they find the number? If they can't remember, what we'll tell them today.
In the yellow pages of the phone book, at the beginning of the physicians list, the society is listed as Yuba-Sutter-Colusa County Medical Society Information Bureau.
So if someone has a question, they'll look up that number. Why don't you tell us that number just so we can start?
673-6894.
And we'll repeat that again later on so people can write that down. Tell us a little bit about what happens. Someone will call you up, and what kinds of questions are you asked occasionally?
Well, generally, a great portion of the calls are newcomers that haven't established contact with a family physician, let's say, and I would give them the names of various physicians as referrals, not as recommendations, but as referrals, and then they would call and make the appointments. In other words, giving them a choice of 4 or 5.
So if someone would call up and say, I want to see a pediatrician, you might give them 6 or 7 names and say, these are the people who are available in the community?
That's correct.
So you wouldn't say, I like Dr. So-and-so, go to this doctor. You won't
No,
say that.
that's interesting because many times I get that question, well, who would you go to and who do you like and so on. Well, but it's the patient's choice, and as long as they have 4 or 5 to pick from.
So actually, once they get the list of names, it might be to their advantage to ask their friends and other people who they would recommend instead of just picking anybody.
I would say that would be right, and also I get calls regarding second opinions.
So if a doctor would recommend surgery and say, perhaps you want a second opinion, they may call you and say, please tell me someone else who is a general surgeon that could give me another opinion about this.
But that's a little bit touchy because they should go through their primary first.
Their original doctor should recommend someone to get another opinion, is what you're saying?
If they're getting a second opinion, the original physician should be aware of that, and that's what I tell them. Discuss it with your primary physician and tell him that you would like to get a second opinion.
Dr. Burky, do people ever come to the Medical Society with complaints about doctors?
Yes, they do, and we have a committee called the Grievance Committee that hears all of these complaints, and we do pay very careful attention to the complaints that people have, and we actually welcome those complaints. We feel that it helps us all to be better doctors if we're aware of what is making someone unhappy. And frequently people feel a little in awe of the physician or unwilling to say, I just really am not pleased with this or that aspect of the care. And it does provide an avenue that they can make a grievance complaint to our society. And as I say, we never ignore those. We explore them very carefully and get all the facts and gather them all together, and then at that point make recommendations. And I feel it's one of the very useful services that the society performs. It's somewhat of a negative thing, and it's unfortunate that we have to have it, but it is part of the service, and I think it's a very useful part.
Now, are all doctors in the community members of the Medical Society?
No, unfortunately, not all physicians are members. It's a matter of free choice, and percentage-wise, Ed, do you have any idea what percent of the physicians?
I think probably 70%. In the 3 counties, we have approximately 135 physicians, and we have right now 82 active.
Any idea?
Does that compute?
Sure. Is there any idea in your mind why some doctors wouldn't want to be members and others would?
Well, I think one of the things, frankly, is financial. There is a cost factor. You do have to pay dues, and there is some expense involved. And then in this day and age, why frequently people don't want to take their time on their evening off to go and attend a meeting and discuss problems, and they'd rather stay home with their families. And it's understandable, but I do think that the society is very useful in its functions, and we, of course, are always encouraging everybody to join.
I find it interesting that the doctors who are members are willing to spend their money to actually discipline themselves, to maintain the high standards of medical care that they want to have in the community.
Yes, and I think that's something very much the credit of the organization.
It's really quite a nice service. What hours, Mr. Ebey, can people call your number and get information about doctors?
Well, since it's a one-man operation, I have a tape, an answering service tape, and they can put their request on the tape. But strangely enough, many people don't like to talk to the tape. And so I would say that probably 25%, if I'm not in the office, I get 25% 1 out of 4 will talk.
But you'll
And
call them back if they leave their number.
if they leave their name and number, I always call them back, certainly.
It's a pretty helpful service. I've had patients and friends call up and not know who to go to, and you do give nice lists of names. Will you give information about qualifications of doctors? Were they trained? That sort of information.
Occasionally you get a request, is the doctor board certified? Well, I have to ask them, I have to call them back because I'd have to check their profile. I would tell them if they were board eligible or board certified. Sure.
That brings up a point I wanted to discuss with Dr. Burky as well. The concept of board eligibility and board certified has a lot of people confused. Could you define for us exactly what's meant by board eligible and board certified?
Yes, a physician becomes board eligible after completing a residency training past the basic MD training level. At the satisfactory completion of that in whatever institution the individual trains in, he becomes board eligible. Now, at that point then, he can apply for his examinations for the board, and if he can satisfactorily pass and complete those examinations, he then becomes board certified.
So this means you have a doctor who's completed medical school, completed his internship, then he goes on to complete many years of additional training in his specialty, which is called the residency. After that residency, he could then call himself board eligible.
That's correct, yes.
And then if he takes this complex exam, which I just took and know how hard it is, he can then, if he passes that exam, call himself board certified.
That's correct.
How important do you feel that standard is?
Well, I think for specialty practice that it's a good system, and I don't really have any quarrel with it. Practically everybody out practicing medicine now has the opportunity to qualify for a board, and I think it's a good thing and a nice thing. I think in terms of entering the mainstream of medical care that it's good yet to have a family doctor that you turn to and rely on, because this man will know in the subspecialty areas who is good and who's competent and who's trustworthy, and I think he can guide you in that. And I think it's perfectly well and good to go into the specialty areas as you need them, but I think it's always a good idea to have a family physician friend that will sort of guide you through the maze. And I think that's one of the useful things a society can do, is get people connected with family doctors and general doctors who can guide them through this rather confusing maze of medical care delivery.
It appears in our community, with the large number of general practitioners, family practitioners, and the large number of specialists, that there's a very good relationship among them.
This is a very nice medical community, I think, and I think we're very fortunate with considering the relatively small size of the communities, with the really quite expert care that's available here.
Well, we're running out of time. I wanted to just ask you, do you have any other information you'd like to inform the community about regarding the Medical Society?
Well, I might just add that we work in close harmony with the county medical society, or the county health officers. We are available to them if they have any questions. Our present Sutter County health officer attends the meetings very frequently and attends our executive sessions, and we're glad to have the county health officers there, because we do like to work in close harmony with county health delivery systems. And we do have a committee on county and public health matters as a member of the society. And we also keep abreast of what's happening in the state medical scene. Our members from our society, we send 2 delegates and 2 alternate delegates every year to the California Medical Association meeting. They're expected to attend, and the 2 delegates are expected to be on the floor of the House of Delegates and be acutely aware of what's going on at the state level, and they come back and report to us, and this too we feel is useful so that we have some idea what's going on in other parts of the state, and helps us to remain a little more current. And we have a censor board, and this is one of the more negative aspects, and I don't like to end on that, but that if a physician is not practicing up to standards, why he can be censored through the society if he's one of our members, and That doesn't happen very much or very often, but it is possible if necessary.
I'd like to again go over the phone number where people can reach Mr. Ebey to ask questions about doctors.
That's 673-6894.
673-6894. And if you're not there, the recording machine will take a message and you'll certainly contact them. Just to inform you more about our guest today, Dr. Burky is an orthopedic surgeon who's been in this community for 12 years at least now.
Yes.
And has quite a good practice and an excellent reputation. Mr. Ebey, what's your background?
Primarily public education and administration, from which I'm retired.
Oh, and now this is an extra bit of work for you here.
Keeps you
pretty busy.
Keeps me busy.
Right, the County Medical Society has monthly meetings, and Mr. Ebey really organizes and sets those up pretty well, too.
Yes.
I'd like to thank Dr. Burky and Mr. Ebey for being our guests tonight on the Medical Explorer. Thank you for coming over from the County Medical Society. In our next show, the Medical Explorer will take you behind the scenes of the Rideout Hospital emergency room. We will meet the emergency room paramedics, we'll meet the nurses who specialize in emergency medicine, and see some of the vast modern medical equipment that helps make the Rideout Hospital emergency room one of the best in Northern California. Thank you for joining us tonight on the Medical Explorer. I'm Dr. Robert Peppercorn, your Yuba Sutter Medical Explorer. Have a good evening.